Welcome back, everybody, to CyHawk Talk. Me, Ben Hutchens, Ethan Petrik covering Iowa FBS football. It's week 6 already. Can you believe that? Here we are. Iowa State just got past the 1/3 of the way through their season mark, 4 games. Iowa's beyond that too. How are you feeling, Ethan?
It's very fantasy football podcast of you to say, I can't believe we're already in insert week that we are currently in. I'm feeling great. The bye week sucked. I didn't have anything to do on Saturday. I had to watch Iowa State. I didn't get to watch the Hawks. Just kidding. I love watching college football no matter who it is. Yeah, I'm doing great here on this fine Wednesday.
Well, I have good news for you. The Iowa Hawkeyes played this week, if you hadn't heard.
I,
And
I hadn't. Thank you for informing me. I wonder if I'm supposed to be at that.
Well, I know you have like an 8 hour drive to make, so you might put that on your radar too, because I know you're going to be in the shoe for a big football game, a big window, right? National window. World's kind of going to be watching what the heck happens in Columbus. What are some of the things you're looking for as the Hawkeyes go to that game?
Yeah, game's going to be on CBS, so prime time. The number one thing that I think, or the number one burning question I have going into that game is, do we continue to get this Jekyll and Hyde inconsistency from the Iowa Hawkeyes? Is it going to be a tale of two halves like it's been all year? Illinois State, not so great in the first half, amazing in the second half. You got Cade McNamara running off the field to chance for the Heisman. Iowa State, great in the first half, not so great in the second half. Troy, bad first half, good second half. Minnesota, bad first half, good second half. So it seems like halftime adjustments are a strength of the Hawkeyes right now, particularly on offense. Because when we're talking about struggles, it's mainly offensive struggles in those halves that are befalling the Hawkeyes and causing them these issues. That's the number one thing I'm looking at. You've had a bye week to try and retool things, figure things out, and really get consistent play from your team. Uh, Unfortunately, like Kirk Ferentz said, it's a heck of a week for a test drive because you're facing number 3 Ohio State. So the tale of the two halves is really where I'm kind of keying in. It's like the number one thing I'm looking at. Is it going to be a consistent performance all the way through?
Yeah, now you're sounding like you're talking Cyclones with an inconsistent offense. Something plaguing both of the state schools right now. And we'll get into kind of what this Ohio State game could do, implications long term, short term for the Hawkeyes. But I was wondering about a story I saw you published talking about Cade McNamara not always grabbing the laces. I mean, I guess something that maybe a lot of quarterbacks do more than people like me think about.
Yeah, so it's something that really came up during the Troy game back in week 3. The two play-by-play guys, Eric Collins was the play-by-play commentator. Spencer Tillman, former Oklahoma running back, was the color commentary on that game. And Collins noticed on the second or third drive of the third quarter, McNamara threw a 13-yard pass to Luke Lachey, and they got a like back end sky cam of the pass, and McNamara didn't use the laces, and the throw was a little low. It was a completion for a first down, but the throw was a little low. And so Collins was just in disbelief. And then the next offensive drive, they touched on it again. And Tillman was like, well, that's kind of weird because you can get more velocity if you use the laces. And we talked to Cade on Tuesday about it. And he was pretty nonchalant. He was like, you're going to have to throw the ball without laces eventually. And so he kind of got into how he figured out how to do that and how he gained confidence in throwing that way. So it's an interesting story. I'm not sure where I fall. I've never tried to throw a football without the laces before. I kind of have small hands, so I'm not going to try and didn't do it. I probably couldn't even. I can't palm a basketball, so I probably can't throw without the laces. So I'm not even going to try and embarrass myself that way. But it was just kind of interesting to hear him talk about it because when he was asked about it, it was odd to him. It was almost as odd to him that we were asking about it as it was for Eric Collins on that broadcast to see the no laces throw. So there was just like the two parties were on completely opposite sides of the spectrum on the laces no laces discussion.
Yeah, no, that was just an interesting note. I watched the whole video. And something I want to kind of ask Rocco Becht about now. Is that something that all quarterbacks do, or what the deal is there? Now, looking to this game, big implications, right? With the win a loss. What are Hawkeye fans kind of thinking about those two alternatives.
Yeah, I think when you talk about like the playoff-ometer that we're going to do on Sunday, we're going to have a pretty clear picture of where the Hawkeyes sit and what they need to do over the course of their final 7 games to improve their odds at the college football playoff. You look at the remaining schedule after Ohio State, you don't have any ranked teams on the schedule. You have Washington, Michigan State, Northwestern, Wisconsin, UCLA, Maryland, and Nebraska. Um, Maybe it's a little bit biased for my alma mater. I think Nebraska probably has looked like the best team in that slate. And that's going to be a home game for Iowa. So you're thinking you're feeling pretty good about that one, especially after what you saw from the Huskers against Illinois, where they didn't really play disciplined football. That's usually Iowa's strength. So looking at the remaining schedule, you got to feel confident that Iowa can come out with a win. You can see a reasonable path to a win for Iowa in all 7 of those games. It's really just this game that's going to kind of put into perspective. If you want to make the college football playoff, this is what you need to do the rest of the way. I think if you win, you feel like you're going to be in. You're thinking you're going to be 11-1 going to the Big Ten championship, win or lose with a win over a top 5 opponent. You're probably going to make the college football playoff. A loss, it's a little bit more murky because you're not going to have any super marquee wins. Your biggest win at that point is going to be a Washington or a Michigan State or a Wisconsin or a Nebraska, and none of those teams look like they're going to be real college football playoff contenders come 7 weeks from now. So this is the last chance for a super marquee win. I don't think their college football playoff hopes are dashed if they lose, but you can't lose another game if you lose to Ohio State. I think a 3-loss Iowa team with the schedule we see right now probably isn't enough to get in the college football playoff. So I think the picture is going to be super clear, win or lose, what needs to be done over the course of the final 7 games.
And for those wondering, it's Ohio State's favored by 20 and a half points. So
It
pretty
depends.
big.
It depends on the book you're looking at. Some have 19 and a half. Some have 20 and a half. Yesterday, ESPN bet was up at 23 and a half. The general consensus is 3 scores. I think that's an incredibly good line. I'll talk about that later, but yeah, it's a tall task.
So with that status as a big underdog in this game, right? College football playoffs not out of the picture even with a loss. Is it going to be a play in with house money situation?
That's kind of what Cade McNamara spoke about on Tuesday. He said, if everyone expects us to lose, what do we have to lose? We should be able to play with less stress, play a little bit more free when it comes to this game in particular. Um, Kirk Ferentz understands kind of the motivational aspect that a point spread can have on an individual, but he doesn't want his team to focus on that. He wants them to focus on the preparation and really key in on what it takes to beat a team like Ohio State. And I think that's a pretty important distinction for Coach Ferentz to make, because I think it shows you that maybe Iowa isn't as far away from beating an Ohio State as maybe a lower tier Big Ten team. And when you look at the component parts of Iowa, it's a super solid defense and a really dominant ground game through the first 4 games of the schedule. And I think those are the things you need to have to beat Ohio State and to beat them at home. You look at the last 2 times Ohio State lost at home, it was to Michigan and Oregon. Both the Wolverines and the Ducks won the turnover battle, and they outgained Ohio State on the ground. They didn't win the time of possession battle, which is normally the third thing you're looking for in that to make that trifecta. But those are all the things that Iowa should be capable of doing with the talent we've seen on this roster. We know that they can run the ball. Caleb Johnson should be a Heisman contender. He should be at least top 10 right now with the way he's been able to run the ball through 4 weeks. The offensive line looks like they've been able to open up holes. He's made guys miss in the backfield, even when there is maybe a breakdown in the run blocking. And then the defense has shown the ability to get takeaways. So you're looking at it, Iowa has the component parts. So I don't think they need to feel like they're 3 score underdogs. I feel like that is definitely something they can use as motivation, but they feel a lot closer when you actually try and stack some things up than the line would lead you to believe. Now, Ohio State does have 8 starters who were 5 stars coming out of high school. They're top 10 in both total offense and total defense. It's gonna be tough. I don't want to minimize how significant this challenge is going to be, but I feel like Iowa has the pieces to make it happen. It's just a matter of executing at the highest level, getting those takeaways, and opening up holes for Caleb Johnson.
Yeah, he's a guy who everybody, it feels like, that we talk to and interact with knows what kind of force he is, except maybe those NCAA football evaluators. You uncovered a kind of a crazy stat. What was that all about?
Yeah, I don't want to like. This is nothing new. This is no original reporting. It's just more of a soapbox thing for me. Caleb Johnson got a 13-point bump in his overall on college football 25. Which why was he a 74? He had a crazy freshman season. I know there was a sophomore slump there, but let's take a little bit more pride in our work here at College Football Developers. He hits the 13-point bump though to 87. He's still trailing two of the more well-known, talented running backs in the country by a significant margin. Ashton Jonty, who we talked about on the show last week for Boise State, he's a 96. Ollie Gordon's a 95. I feel like coming into the season, Ollie Gordon was pretty obviously the number one running back to most people in the country. Um, I feel like this is a clear case where they're weighing pedigree in Gordon's case over production in Johnson's case. I'd like to see those numbers be a little bit closer. If Johnson's a 93, I'm not talking about this right now. But an 87, come on, let's bump that up a little bit. I can still use Johnson to dominate in Dynasty. It's not going to be a problem, but I would like to just be able to absolutely run around guys. I don't want to actually have to use the skill stick.
Otherwise, it gets bad.
You guys have a pretty big game coming up over in Ames. It's going to be a whiteout. My grandpa, who's going to be in Iowa this week, is going to be at the game. So I mean, it's must see TV. People are coming from Montana to watch the game. Talk about the stakes at Jack Trice this week a little bit, Ben. I just chatted your ear off about Ohio State. Tell me about the Baylor game.
Well, that's exactly it, Ethan. Is I think whether you're on Iowa State Twitter or you're just walking around Ames, walking around Jack Trice, you kind of feel this buzz in the air where this week does matter, right? Baylor is a team that I think is very beatable for Iowa State, but the stakes are really high because Iowa State's coming in 4-0 for the first time since 2000. That's been talked about a lot. There's a whiteout scheduled, which has everybody excited. It's on Fox primetime night game. So I think this is going to be sort of an opportunity for Iowa State to really make a statement nationally. Kind of, hey, this team is a force to be reckoned with, and it feels like a serious game. So that's just an observation. Like there's a buzz in the air walking around Ames. Going into the Jacobson building for interviews yesterday, you see the ribbon board advertising this whiteout. I think there is kind of an atmosphere in Ames that yes, it attracted your grandpa. That's just a sign of kind of how this week is felt.
Yeah, he grew up in Cyclone country, so he may be a little bit of a Cyclone fan at heart. But uh, looking at the whiteout game, they're wearing those whiteout uniforms for the first time since they unveiled them. There's been a lot of discourse. Are you a Jersey guy at all? I like the look of them. I think that they're pretty slick. What do you think of the whiteout uniform?
Yeah, I'm a big Star Wars guy, so I like the Stormtrooper comparison. I think that's pretty accurate. So I will kind of be excited to see what those look like. Maybe Attack of the Clones will be something we can right afterward. I know people like to mention that, but overall, Ethan, I'm not a huge Jersey guy. I don't get too caught up in the reveals and what's going on. I know some people can think back to what the Cyclones wore on, October 12th, 2014 in that game. But I don't get too caught up in it. But the Stormtrooper uniforms, that does get me excited.
Well, my brother had a saying growing up when we were in hockey: look good, feel good, play good. And maybe that's the case for the Iowa State offense that you said needs to kind of figure out how to play a more consistent game. Talk about what that looks like, a more consistent performance from the Iowa State offense against the Baylor Bears.
Right. So we talked about it on Sunday. After the Houston game, Iowa State had 3 points with, well into the third quarter. It was like two minutes left in the third quarter when they finally got that first touchdown of the game. And that's fine and well against Houston, but it's probably not going to cut it even against Baylor and definitely not against some of these more formidable opponents, I feel like, in the rest of the Big 12 play. So certainly something that the Cyclones are going to have to address. And I think it's important because it's been a little bit of a season-long trend, right? Against North Dakota, 14 points in the first half. Against Iowa, 0. We can kind of throw out Arkansas State as an FCS opponent with one of the worst defenses in all of FBS. But 3 points last week. So it's kind of a season-long trend that we saw reemerge this last week. And is it a cause for concern? I asked Matt Campbell about that this week, and he said he didn't really notice anything specifically from the tape in the first half of the Houston game, much different from the second half offensively. He felt like the Cyclones moved the ball effectively in both halves. It's just a matter of finishing in the red zone, which of course they weren't able to do as effectively in that first half. So I think that's the area you watch is all right. Cyclones can move the ball, but they got to be efficient with finishing drives in the red zone because eventually they're not going to be able to shut teams out.
Maybe expand a little bit about or expand on a little bit what the Cyclones defense has looked like in second halves and what, if anything, has allowed them to be so dominant in shutting teams down after halftime. What did you get any clarity from the coaching staff on that this week?
I think it's as much of a mentality as anything else, which is kind of interesting, Ethan. Like you think of a closer in the ninth inning for a baseball game. Iowa State's really had some of that mentality. I think of the interception that that um, the cornerback made for Iowa State to close out last game in the end zone. I think of the punch out from Malik Verdon. Turnovers have been part of that, and I think it is just kind of a batten down the hatches. Iowa State's defense is not going to get flustered if the offense isn't playing complementary football, if they have to hold opponents to a really low number. So I think it's the turnovers combined with a mentality for the Cyclones that's creating a really effective second half.
Yeah, and I think after the CyHawk game, a lot of people keyed in on Darian Porter's first interception on the boot where Cade McNamara boots right, looks back left. He's got his tight end, and then Darian Porter just makes a play and gets that interception is kind of what started churning the tide of momentum for the Cyclones in that one. So I certainly see kind of what you're talking about in the one game that I've seen the Cyclones play for a full 60 minutes this season. So it seems like they found something that works really well. You don't want to live and die on turnovers, but it's working for them right now. So I kind of get what you're saying a little bit. Looking ahead, future casting a little bit, getting into some headlines that we might be reading from you on Sunday. What do you um, expect to be reality on Sunday for Iowa State after the Baylor game?
Yeah, this will reveal, I think, the result of this one. But I think the big headline would be bear down. I think that the Cyclones defeat Baylor. I don't know. I think this atmosphere is going to be something special. I don't think the Cyclones are getting too caught up in it. You know, they aren't getting caught up in all the peripherals and the drone show that's going to be going on Saturday. So I do think that the Cyclones kind of continue this positive momentum. Bear down is my first headline.
Looking at the Ohio State game, the first headline that I think we're going to be reading coming out of Columbus, coming out of the shoe, is just a shrug emoji. Like, and not even words. Just we're going to copy and paste the shrug emoji. I touched on it a little bit earlier. Not the game you really wanted coming out of the bye week. You get a super opponent. You know, number 3 team in the country, top 10 total offense, total defense. Like I said, how much can you take away from a game like that? I said Iowa's got the component parts to do it. I think that the line is good though. I think Ohio State probably comes out on top. And if the Buckeyes do, it's kind of, well, what did we learn today other than, Ohio State's really good and we're still not sure what the adjustments out of the bye week look like. So I think it's going to kind of be a shrug emoji. Um, and I'll get into another headline later that kind of gives you what that evolves into later on in the week. But go ahead and give us your second headline coming out of the Baylor game.
Yeah, I'm stepping up my headline game. I'm bringing it this week. Bear down was
These
my
these
first
these two
one.
were excellent. These two were excellent.
I think we're gonna write the Jackson Five for Saturday, of course, in reference to senior running back Jalen Jackson, who we talked to this week and was just really impressed by him and just is his play, his shiftiness, his quickness in that Houston game was something that jumped off the page. And Jalen's a guy who has gotten more and more carries, more and more work, more and more trust from this coaching staff each game. And last week, he finally erupted with a 14 for 96 game, 50 yards of which came on a huge run around the right side that set up a scoring drive. So I think Jalen Jackson just continues that. And I think the fifth game for Jalen Jackson is going to be something that we're talking about and is important.
Or he could just score 5 touchdowns, and then it would be the Jackson 5 too, right?
That'd be pretty impressive. Five touchdowns. We'll see.
Go ahead and polish us off with your next great headline because my last two are duds. So go ahead and give us excellence to finish out the Iowa State three headlines.
I think The Adventures of Sawyer Robinson will be a headline tomorrow. And that's, of course, talking about the Baylor quarterback, Sawyer Robinson, who has been kind of all over the place. He had four total touchdowns last week in Baylor's game against BYU, but he also had two interceptions. And those were important as Baylor lost that game by a touchdown. So Sawyer's a guy who can hurt you with his legs, he can hurt you with his arm. But ultimately, for a very disciplined Iowa State defense, we talked about that. I think it's going to be a lot for Sawyer to handle. I think the Cyclones are going to generate some turnovers, and it's going to be a day full of adventures for Sawyer.
My final two headlines are number two, stakes set. So after you got the shrug emoji, you got the stakes set. Like I said, after coming out of this one, you're going to know what you need to do the rest of the way. The sub headline on this is Hawkeyes must remain perfect. And they need to go 7-0 to finish out the season 10-2. The stakes are set if you want to get the college football playoff. Like they all said the goal was coming into the year, you got to go 7-0. And then it'll round out with home sweet home after two road games, Minnesota, Ohio State. Second one being the tougher of the two. I think they will welcome Washington into Kinnick Stadium on October the 12th with a lot of excitement to be back in the friendly confines because back-to-back road games in a rivalry environment and then the shoe just not where you want to be. I think they're gonna relish the time at home when they get back there. So those are my three headlines. Thank you for watching CyHawk Talk. We'll be back on Sunday with our Sunday Rewind show, just discussing, breaking down our takeaways from those two games this weekend. Thank you for watching. And my mom told me that I need to tell you guys to like, comment, and subscribe so we can grow our channel. So please do all of those things as well. Thanks for watching.